Listen, tensions are running high today. And usually that will be the case after the company-wide meeting because, if your company's like our company, like most companies, meetings can kind of suck. And so there's some tensions in here, and I think it's just more of a coiled kind of tension, I guess might be the best way to describe it, because when you don't accomplish what you want to accomplish, it's just kind of frustrating. So PJ's feeling it a little bit today.
It's a little bit of everything.
You okay?
Let's talk some stuff.
PJ Zuko
I'm good.
isn't always this lighthearted, fun co-host. He actually has a big boy job.
Yeah.
This is not work. This is just us talking about sports.
It's work for sure, but at the same, like, it's entertaining. It's fun. It's probably like
you actually have to work a vast majority of the time.
But that's the other thing too, is like that's the joy of kind of being in a co-host role, which like that's
you get to come on here and react.
Yeah. Okay. So like I will say you have the much more jobby portion of this show, but you also enjoy it. Like I know as being a host of like some of the high school stuff, like High School First Look, High School Sports Roundup, is that more work trying to figure out the scores, trying to figure out what happened, trying to talk to all the coaches?
This is definitely my favorite because this is my therapy session. Like with
but
those,
it's also enjoyable.
Yeah, with
right?
those, with those, you guys have structure and like you have to like stick to certain points and like you can't go like off the beaten path too much. Like if you start talking about, I don't know, what are some of the things we talked about yesterday? Art Briles during High School First Look. Some of the coaches might be like, "The hell are we doing here?"
But, right? What are you talking about?
But anyway, no. So we're just gonna try. We're gonna have some fun today. We don't want to let PJ's tensions spill out over the airwaves.
That sounds like a good.
Because everybody else comes here and they don't want more stress.
Right? No, absolutely not.
So we're gonna have some fun today. We're gonna talk about Wilt scoring 100 because Cam seems to think not quite as impressive as everybody else seems to think it is. I just asked him about 3 different things. Like, are these more impressive? And he was like, yes. On all of those. Yeah. And I think it's one of those things where it's like one of those hallowed numbers, but when we go back to it, and there's some people in the car that are absolutely yelling at us right now because you're like, you damn youths. Like this, like I think it's one of those things where Wilt was maybe stunting on some dudes that wouldn't be able to play at the local Y.
No.
Right.
No. It's bad. No.
So we'll dive into that a little bit. Also, State of the Union, college football edition. We'll get to that.
You had me worried there for a second.
We're playing live. Like, we're playing live audio from No, I'm just kidding. We're gonna do a little college football State of the Union, but I did want to start here, sticking with college football. When you guys think about the best teams in the country, I think the top 3 are pretty much chalk for everybody, just like however you want to put them out there. Who would you guys have right now? Top 3 teams going into 2022.
Want to go first?
I think it's just the same as it has been for the last like 5 years or so. You might be surprised at who I have there. I don't know. But it's been Alabama, Clemson, and honestly Georgia to me for 3 or 4 years. And I know Georgia broke through, won the national championship this year, but for 4 or 5 years now, it's been those 3.
Going into this year, obviously Georgia, Alabama, and then got put Ohio State.
Yeah.
They're loaded.
Understandable.
That kid at wide receiver, CJ Stroud. They had that freshman phenom at running back.
Travion Henderson, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Marvin Harrison.
I might call them
Marvin Harrison the third.
Marvin Harrison the third. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I might go as far as calling them, if Alabama isn't the favorite, I would put Ohio State ahead of Georgia just because they have a lot.
Well, we're gonna come back to Ohio State, but anyway, so those are the top 3 teams in the country, and ESPN.com with their college football staff put out the biggest offseason concerns and things that need to be addressed. Obviously, Georgia's was replacing all the talent that they're about to lose to the NFL draft. Kind of serendipitous. You have the most guys invited to the Combine 14, which takes place in Indianapolis, where you just won your first national championship. So all those guys need to go back out there and work out on the field in which they won the first national championship for Georgia since 1981. But after that, Texas A&M actually comes in at number 4, and they're losing some people, but also have a whole lot of talent back and probably upgrading at the quarterback position. Last year was Haynes King and Zach Calzada. Zach Calzada is now at Auburn. They add Max Johnson from LSU, and they have a big-time freshman, Connor Wegman, coming in, who is ESPN's number 1 quarterback. I know Cade Kubelik over at Clemson was a lot of people's number one. But so Texas A&M, very good. After that, pretty surprising, the rest of the top 10 to me. And this is just kind of an early look at what the field could look like going into 2022. Michigan remains inside the top 5, which they have a whole lot coming back. And maybe it's just, you're losing Aiden Hutchinson, David Njoku, and Daxton Hill.
And Haskins. Too. Yeah, Haskins.
Hawkins.
Haskins or Hawkins for the running back?
Oh, I was talking about the safety.
Oh, I was talking about the running back.
Okay.
Okay, good.
There
We just killed two birds with one stone.
There you go.
Cool.
So you're losing a whole lot, but more so than that, I think it was just like how badly they got humbled on the national stage as to why I was surprised to see them at number 5. But it is what it is. Number 6 is Notre Dame, which again to me semi-surprising, but you have a first time head coach coming in to take over there, and Marcus Freeman, who was the defensive coordinator at Cincinnati 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's quite the meteoric rise for him, but also replacing a bunch of people. And Kyron Williams, probably the biggest loss from there. Travis Mayer, the tight end, is really good, but that's interesting. Utah's number 7, which is another team that has lost just a ton of talent. Devin Lloyd being the biggest one. And then how about NC State?
Wow.
Coming in at number 8.
Really?
Ahead of Clemson? Dang. I don't know who's coming back for NC State.
Well, Devin Leary, the quarterback, is coming back, and they return a ton of players all over that team. But more so than that, it's kind of how they finished season. Remember, they beat Clemson last year.
Yeah, but 8?
Yep. Then Oklahoma State comes in at number 9.
Okay.
Which, interesting, because it's not the Oklahoma State teams of the past last year where it was all offense and then holding on defense. It was a defense-led team, and then they go out and they still Auburn's defensive coordinator.
Yeah.
And so it's just
that's pretty nice.
I mean, listen, you can go and add Derek Mason to your staff.
Honestly, I'm kind of surprised they're that low, but the teams that are in front of them.
Well,
I mean,
but then Michigan State rounds out the top 10. Clemson's at 11.
Okay.
And what I found fascinating about Clemson is DJ Uiagalelei, he had 9 touchdown passes last year.
Yeah. It's crazy.
He had like 5 against
double
Notre
digits.
Dame or something.
Yeah, a couple of years ago. 9 touchdown passes. But so as we look at this, what I want to talk about here is are we looking at another chalk season where it's all right, there's like 6 teams where we know they're going to 4 out of 6 of them are going to make it to the college football playoff.
I will say this.
Because like Cincinnati's ranked like 19th, like they kind of missed. I don't even want to say they missed their window. That's not fair. They made the college football playoff as the first G5 school to make the college football playoff. Actually, Houston is ranked inside the top 15 here. So it's probably not going to see a G5 school make the playoff here. Is this just another year where we're looking at it and saying, all right, well, let's go Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, and throw in one more team.
Fill in the 4th.
Michigan.
I actually think it will, but I think it would be a little bit more competitive with the top 3. I think Ohio State, Georgia, or Alabama, either of those 3 can win it all. I mean, all that talent Ohio State has coming back, but I agree with you. I think it's just another chalk season. That's why I wish they would kind of like expand it to try just make it a little bit more interesting, but I agree. I don't know who would be the top 4 team, but I know those are the 3.
Here's where I think it gets interesting because I don't know how good Georgia's going to be. They're going to be really good. Mm-hmm. Like they're clearly a top 5 team in the country, right? Offensive line is going to be really good. Defensive line, if things work out the way they're supposed to, maybe takes a little bit of a step back. It's not going to be as dominant as it was last year, but it'll still be one of the top 2 or 3 defensive lines inside of college football. Linebacker, you have to take a step back. Right? Like you have to. And I understand Georgia goes out and recruits 5-star mutants to play inside linebacker. And there's some dudes who played last year who made some splash plays and some cleanup time, but you don't go from Nakobe Dean and Quay Walker to underclassmen and say, yeah, it's fine. Secondary might, I'd say, even be a little bit improved this year, which last year we didn't really see them get tested too often until you got to the SEC championship just because that front 7 was so good. They'll get tested more.
That's my thought on that is like you said, it's destined, like you're going to take a bit of a step back on the linebacking core, but in that sense, you hope that another core steps up. And to me, that would be the secondary. Of course, the defensive line will be solid as well. But
yeah, Jalen Carter might be the best football player on that defense.
Right. And that's the special thing
year.
about as Kirby Smart has said in the past, that's the special thing about recruiting well and having these programs that are
Did you
always
just
in the top
combine
5.
both Georgia
Kirby
coaches
Smart.
for the Kirby Mark.
Something like that. I don't know. It's been a day, man. But that's the special thing about being able to recruit that well is, like you said, they didn't have to rely on that secondary an insane amount last year. But then again, maybe if they progress, they get better. Maybe next year they are the focal point of this defense, and we'll see about that. And you're gonna need a really good secondary with the kind of talent around the SEC at wide receiver and at quarterback. But that also is kind of my thing when it comes to like Clemson and Alabama. I'm surprised at how low Clemson is because if you look at the recruiting rankings and things like that, like they got guys still coming in that can do it. So like, I don't know. I think back to your original point, I think, and this might sound really silly, but and simple, it'll be chalk until someone steps up and it isn't. Right? Like,
well, I think the number 4 team can really throw a wrench in everything, and that's Texas A&M. Because just hypothesis, right? Theoretical. We just talked about Georgia maybe taking a step back. Their schedule ain't very hard next year. They should be favored by double digits in a majority of the football games they play. Don't have to play LSU. Don't have to play Alabama. You got to play Auburn, but you get that one at home, and it's an Auburn program that's kind of reeling right now. So maybe your toughest game on the schedule is Oregon and Florida.
Maybe at Mississippi State.
And we don't know how good Mississippi State's going to be. So theoretically, Georgia, 90% chance they make the SEC championship. Say 70% chance just because you're going to lose a game at some point. They get there undefeated, right? Just with that schedule. That Texas A&M Alabama game, week 5, is going to be huge because there's a distinct chance you have an undefeated team that makes it out of the West, and then you have a 1-loss team that's sitting there that their only loss is to an undefeated team, probably number 1 team in the country. Because if Texas A&M beats Alabama and goes undefeated, they're going to be the number 1 team in the country going into the SEC championship. So that's when all of a sudden this 12-team college football playoff not getting pushed through can become real rough because you could have 2 undefeated SEC teams playing each other in the SEC championship. At the end of the game, you could have an undefeated conference champion, a 1-loss conference runner-up, and then a 11-1 team where their only loss could theoretically be to the SEC undefeated champion.
Could this be the year where we see 3 schools?
I'm not trying to talk that into existence,
but I'm
just
could
saying
be. Yeah.
Someone's going to get left out, and they're going to have a legitimate argument for being like, "Why the hell did we get left out?"
Yeah, I mean, you are right. I was thinking. I remember the COVID year. With Texas A&M, only loss was to Alabama. They didn't get in, so somebody's going to get left out. I don't think they're going to put 3 SEC teams in, like you said. But I will say this about Georgia, where they're getting weaker on the defense. They're getting stronger on the offense, bringing back a good wide receiving crew. I think they lost Jermaine Burton and Pickens, but Eric Gilbert's going to be huge, and the emergence of Mitchell, Smith. I think he's coming back from that. Arian Smith. So I think they'll be okay. I think the offense is going to be good.
You talk about Clemson's recruiting, and I think it's fascinating circling back to Clemson here because Clemson's always been a team where they're more so about getting their guys than getting the guys, right? Like obviously a Trevor Lawrence, right? Or Deshaun Watson. That's a little bit different. But when it comes to linemen and linebackers and their corners, they target more program guys, and they're still some of the best guys in the country, but they target program guys and guys who fit their system because Dabo has a certain way of doing things at Clemson. They're number 10 this past year.
Yeah.
And you can still say it's a top 10 recruiting class, but I think in recruiting, much like in the rankings for the teams, there's a really big difference between the 4th best recruiting class and the 10th best recruiting class.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And like you said, it's a bit of a step back, and we'll see. We'll see also we'll see also who maybe fills that void if Clemson does fall, because they are replacing a lot, right? And not only players but like coordinators and things like that as well. So we'll see what that program does. But I think also with this whole 3-team SEC situation, and I still see Texas A&M, and I'm like, I'm not 150% confident that they make it over the hump.
Oh yeah, they'll probably still lose to Arkansas.
That's the thing. We'll have to see. Like I still remember a team that beat Colorado 10-7, and sure, you won that game, whatever. But yeah, like you said, lost to Arkansas. So do they drop a game that they have no business dropping? Maybe. Does Alabama do that? I don't know. It's Alabama,
also
so I'm not
remember,
counting
last
on
year,
that.
remember,
But
like we were all saying we buried Ohio State too early. They're probably the best team in the country. Look at how good these wide receivers are. Like nobody can stop them.
then they come out and get
Michigan
stomped.
came out and just like smacked them.
But that, like, I think you're starting to get to the point that I'm trying to get to is as chalk as that could go with Texas A&M and Alabama and Georgia, and they're all sitting there. Let's remember that last year, outside of the SEC and outside of Georgia, it was one of the most insane years we've ever had. So,
but also, I still think last year went pretty chalk because, like, I'm not trying to be like I said this because a whole lot of media members picked exactly what happened. They said Georgia and Alabama are the top 2 teams in the country. They're going to meet in the SEC championship. One of them is going to beat the other, but they'll both make it to the college football playoff and both play in the national championship. Like a whole lot of media members said that.
Sure.
So it played out that way. So I'm thinking this year, you can already go ahead and say we know 3 of the spots are going to be filled up.
Possibly filled
Either
up,
2
and if
SEC
not,
West
they're going to be in
teams.
contention for the spot to be filled up.
Yeah.
But like what I'm just talking about, you were talking about the 3 SEC team situation and how that could possibly play out, and could we be sitting there on selection day saying, man, 3 of them could have a chance to get in here. I think that's also reliant though on other teams dropping games like they did this year. Like you said, Ohio State, let's face it. Ohio State normally they drop one game. It's kind of a head scratcher type of game. Yeah, right. And then they go on, they roll the rest of the schedule, they win the Big Ten championship by 20 points, and they're in the college football playoff.
That was Michigan's first win over them in what, a decade?
Exactly. So for like as chalk as 1 and 2 were, and I agree with you there was madness everywhere else as well. And so I'm saying if we're going to have that situation where it's, it can Texas A&M get in and Georgia and Alabama, well, we're going to have a similar situation as we did last year with the Big 12 championship going insane and having, multiple lost teams in it. The Pac-12, well, let's face it, the Pac-12 hasn't shown up in years.
You're not buying Caleb Williams, USC, beats by Dre?
Absolutely not this year.
10-2. They go 10-2.
No, exactly, but they're not going to be in contention.
They got it on the line.
No, exactly, right? They're not going to be in contention. So, like, that's what I mean. But we're also probably going to have, let's face it, does Clemson really reel for, like, and if not, does someone else not step up from the ACC? So, like,
no, I don't know if DJU even takes. I mean, is it a possibility he finishes out the season as their quarterback? I don't know.
No, he's fighting for his job right now, and I don't know that Clemson's the best team in the ACC right now.
Well, no,
it might be Wake Forest. I'm surprised they're low considering
like we just said, NC State.
Considering Wake Forest has everybody coming back, I think, even the quarterback, Sam Hartman.
All right, well, listen, we're bringing up a lot of interesting points, which is going to lead us into our State of the Union for college football. We're going to come back. We're going to dive into it. We're going to break down some of the key fears and points and things we need to address, but some of the positive stuff too. You know why? Because we keep it light and we're trying to get PJ to smile today. So we got so many more things to dive into today. It might be a Saquon Barkley mentioned somewhere just to try to get a smile out of him. Oh,
get him out of New York.
I saw his corners of his mouth move up.
They're looking to trade him right now.
See?
Good.
Yeah, see PJ's eyes lighting up.
Get him out of there.
This is Second Down on ESPN Radio. We'll be right back after this. We welcome you back into ESPN continuing coverage of the State of the Union College Football Edition. Way this is going to work, guys, is I am the concerned community. You guys represent college football. So I, as the credentialed media, the gathered press, have some questions for you that if you guys don't mind answering, we would really appreciate it.
Am I making the money that they make? You know, those higher ups at college football.
I'll be asking the questions here, sir.
You want real answers? Or?
I'll be asking the questions here, sir. So we're going to start at the top of the list. Recently, name, image, and likeness was introduced into the college football landscape. Some fans and coaches have concerns that this could be used to further widen the gap between the predominant programs inside of college football and those wishing to compete on the national scale. Should anything be done, guardrails put in place to curtail the deals we are seeing put into place, or should they be remained open in the wild, wild west format that we have right now?
I'll go. I say remain open. Only reason why I say that is it's been like that forever anyway. I wouldn't say as far as like NIL and stuff like that, but it's been like that forever. Alabama's always had the advantage over whatever other school in Georgia and all those other schools. So it's nothing really different that I see that's going on. So I just say remain the same.
So just to translate here as we go back to our studios, just to translate, Cam just said, as long as they're making money, wins and losses don't matter. Alabama and Georgia are going to be there anyway. At least now the schools that go 7-5, their kids can make some money.
Pretty much, yeah.
PJ, your response to the question?
I would say, probably at some point we should look into some guardrails. We should look into some of those things because you're exactly right. I mean, you gotta look out for the little guy to a certain extent from time to time. And while we want to celebrate, of course, the fact that yes, the bigger schools are able to go out and make their guys who deserve, by the way, deserve what they're getting, at the same time, you want to be able to keep it competitive. And at the end of the day, this organization, this sport, college athletics in general, are about things being competitive. And if you walk out there every single week and it's 222-0, well, go out and ask Cumberland College how great that felt. And if we keep widening the gap and widening the gap and widening the gap, we might see that here from some of our more prominent college football teams, or less prominent, of course, in this argument and discussion. So, yeah, some guardrails, not overreaching or not too much, but some. Yeah, I think that's good.
So probably maybe at some point we should look at it, just to go back to PJ's original statement there.
No, I mean, we should, yeah. Like we should, yeah. Not probably what it.
All right, next point.
At some point, absolutely.
Also recently introduced was the removal of having to sit out for a year upon your first transfer throughout schools. And already we have seen the ramifications of this. You have players transferring interconference. You have players getting on campus, being there for 2-3 weeks, and already putting their names inside the transfer portal. Some coaches have raised concerns that now there's literally no break for them. Once they get done with recruiting players from high school, they're immediately on to self-recruiting and trying to keep players inside their own programs. Speaking of guardrails, should there be dates set forth in which players must declare whether or not they are transferring, and then once they get to that kind of a dead period where you're not allowed to transfer inside of that, or should there be any other guardrails put into place with the transfer portal?
I would argue that if said coaches are so insanely concerned with recruiting or not having to recruit or self-recruiting, things like that, they should probably get a job in the NFL or some other form of football.
So you're saying college coaches should have to work 365 days a year?
Who else doesn't? Wait, what? Who doesn't do that?
I certainly don't.
I think that the program you have, well, I don't know. You can't keep every college football player. Like, it's just how it is.
I didn't say that. The question was, should there be guardrails put in place in terms of, like, when in regular recruiting, there's dead periods and there's dates set forth when you're supposed to recruit and when you can enroll.
Right.
Right now, in the transfer, you can transfer in the middle of a season.
Yeah. Are there dead periods on when a coach can quit and leave his job and accept another job?
Great point.
I don't think so. So
hey, I'll ask the questions here.
It's the best way to argue something is just I learned it from or got what's it? Well, I don't know his name.
BJ Bennett. I don't know.
Never mind. No, it's Nick Offerman. I'm just forgetting what his name is in Parks and Rec. But the best way to argue something, the best way to argue something is asking a question back to whoever's asking the question.
Well, I'll be asking the questions here, so
I understand that. I think the program and the stability, the kind of team that you build should speak for itself. And if someone doesn't want to be there anymore, bye.
Cam?
I agree. I don't think there's no need for guardrails. What's the point? If coaches could leave in the middle of the season, or if coaches could leave whenever they want, players should have the luxury to do that as well. Players are the one that play the sport. Coaches are not playing, you're coaching. I just believe, I love the fact that they removed that. I never thought it was a great idea to, make players sit out for transferring. Do coaches sit out when they take a new job or when they transfer to another school? I don't think it's bad for the sport. Now, if you do it for a second time and if you abuse it, then of course, yeah, sit out. You have to sit out for a year. Okay. If you want to transfer in the middle of the season, that's understandable. Maybe a coach lied to you or he promised you more playing time and you got there. And maybe you've produced, but not enough, but you haven't got any playing time. Okay, now leave. So I don't think there should be any guardrails.
What kind of negative impact do you think, or positive impact, do you think not pushing through the 12-team playoff format could have?
Ooh, I think it would be real negative, not pushing, because I think it's bad for college football. If you look at all the other sports, NFL has now they have a 14-team playoff, 7 seeds on each side. MLB, I don't think it's 4 teams. Obviously, it's not. And then you have NBA. Half the league makes the playoffs. Well, more than half now. You have 20 teams get a chance to make it to the postseason.
What about the fans who would argue that having the most elite playoffs in American sports is what makes your regular season the most dynamic and colorful of any sport in American sports?
I love the fact that they say that, because in my opinion, if college football had a 12-team playoff, in my opinion, the regular season would be better, because more teams would compete for like seeds. For instance, top 4 seeds, they get home playoff games. Like, teams would compete for that. Teams are not going to say, "Oh, we lost."
But is that as dramatic as you're literally playing for your life? Or I shouldn't say literally, playing for your playoff life.
No, but also it gives you a sense of you still get to compete towards the end of the year. So those G5 teams that people complain for, now they get an opportunity. Those teams that finish third in the SEC, but
excuse me, G5 teams got opportunities this past year.
Yeah, I mean, they have, but those teams that finished third in the SEC,
hey,
barely.
They got an opportunity.
Barely. And they did that probably
did they
because
get an opportunity and then immediately somehow magically get slated against Alabama? Sure.
Did they?
But it could have been worse.
Did they also have to have said opportunity on one of the most insane years of college football we've ever seen when it comes to top 25 teams losing?
Yeah.
I mean, no. It will have a negative impact if it's not pushed through, because it's had a negative impact on the sport for the last 6 or 7 years. Let's be real. When the college football playoff was brought into existence, it was brought into existence the wrong way, and it's been frustrating and aggravating fans ever since then.
Are we putting too much emphasis on crowning a national champion? Because prior to the college football playoff being introduced, college football was still a hugely popular sport since its induction, and for a very long time, there wasn't a system in place. It was just writers who were determining who the national champion was. And then you had the BCS system where computers and other voters determined who would go to the national championship. But the sport was still hugely popular, even with 2 teams competing for a national championship every year.
It was hugely, like you just said, it was hugely popular when writers were choosing the national championship.
Presidents
So
sometimes.
at the end of the day, I think college football is going to be here and going to be here to stay, whether we're fighting for a national championship between 64 teams or not. And I don't think that should happen by any means. But I think college football has built itself up to this point, and it's not simply because of how they crown a national championship. I also think that if you ask the people back then that were rooting for college football, what their one of their biggest frustrations in the sport would be, it's how they chose that with writers and not being able to compete, and then you can go out and compete for it, but it's slowly progressed, and the reasoning behind it progressing as slowly as it has been insanely frustrating, and I don't really get. Also, just because something is good enough for right now doesn't mean it's the best.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
The college football playoff, has it been good?
Cam, that's how you become a politician.
Has it been good? Has it been fun? Sure. Was the BCS championship good and fun? We crowned a champion between 1 and 2. Sure. Was it the best we could offer and the best we could have to really show who's the best team in the country? No.
PJ said, "Get your brooms out."
So we should keep fighting
a mess
for the best, not just good enough. All right.
Hey, I feel better. after this.
And throwing it, throwing it next day. All right. So we went out there. We got the 2 best teams. All right. And then we said, what about the 3rd best team? All right.
I feel better about this day. If you ask Nick Saban, it'd go back to a 2 team. But
maybe go back to Nick Saban. You just go back to choosing who do you
be careful.
Go back to choosing who do you think the best team is every single year, and every single year it would be Alabama, whether it's a preseason, postseason poll, midseason poll. It's always what it is. But as I've always argued with, I feel like almost everyone in this office, it's about competition. It's about settling it on the field.
Yeah. So the regular season doesn't matter because that was on the field.
No, of course it matters. That's how you fight your way into the playoff. Of course it matters.
With some, mulligans along the way, right?
Not mulligans.
Yeah, you get mulligans.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, because you can drop a stinker out there, but there's 12 teams, so you drop from 3rd to 6th, you could probably lose one more and still be a top 12 team.
How many? And I don't know the exact number off the top of my head, but how many undefeated national championships has there been in college football, especially over the past 20 to 25 years?
I'm saying you can drop a stinker.
I mean, there's been a few, right? But that hasn't been the majority.
Sure.
So I think you've been able to drop a stinker for a long, long time.
Please clip that audio. Okay.
He's right.
No, just PJ saying, I think you've been able to drop a stinker for a long, long time. Please clip that audio. We'll be right back. We got more to come here on Second Down after this. Cam has no respect for his elders. I'm just going to come out and say it. This is Second Down, presented to you by the Uniform Source. Pretty big anniversary today, Cam, that you're not that impressed by.
I mean, I'm impressed by it. Still not the most impressive performance, though.
All right, well, 60 years ago today, Wilt Chamberlain dropped 100 points. 100 points. Still the NBA record. And we're going to go through some single game records. I know we always compare this with the quote-unquote unbreakable records like Cal Ripken's Iron Man streak and stuff like that, right? The unbreakable, it gets compared to a lot of career or season records. I want to compare it to other single game records. So the first one off the bat, go ahead, PJ.
I do have it. Like, are you going to, at the end of all this, you're going to ask him what he thinks is the most impressive?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Never mind. I'm not going to ruin that.
But no, I'm just going to ask.
I already know what
it's
no, I know.
It's 19 points less, but is Kobe's 81-point game more impressive than Wilt Chamberlain dropping 100?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Why?
By far, I mean, he had guys that, for one, was his height matching up with him. That's one thing. That's one thing. And two, the team around him. He had absolutely, I want to say his best player was Kwame Brown. His second best player was Kwame Brown, Smush Parker.
I think Kwame Brown got
1 point.
1 point in that game? Yep.
1 point. And Smush Parker was like his second option.
That's one of my favorite Kwame Brown quotes is Kwame said, yeah, me and Kobe got 82.
Yeah.
I think it's just more impressive if you look at the degree of difficulty. And then there's a backstory. There's like his grandfather came to one game, and that was the one game he came to.
That's pretty cool.
I think it's a little bit more impressive. And that was probably the hardest, in my opinion. 2010 is the hardest era of basketball ever. Point blank, period. Not even close.
All right, let me offer you some other ones. 1977, Reggie Jackson playing for the New York Yankees. Game 6 of the World Series. This is when you become Mr. October. 3 home runs on 3 pitches. The swing of the first pitch every time. 3 home runs. Is that more impressive than 100 points?
That's impressive. That's a good question. I think that's pretty impressive. I would probably say possibly on par because it's hard to hit a baseball in general, but to do it 3 straight times for a home run, it's pretty impressive. I would say it's on par.
PJ,
what series was that in?
Game 6 of the World Series.
Yeah, that's more impressive. Just the stakes as well. It's like I think that plays a part.
Finished with 5 RBIs in the game.
Yeah, I mean that's massive, especially having the confidence to go out there and swing on the first pitch every time, and have that. And you said Game 6, right? So like, I mean that's massive to me. So yeah, I'd say more impressive.
Gale Sayers in his rookie season, going for 6 touchdowns on the ground.
How many yards?
Does not have that pulled up right here, but he did score 6 touchdowns.
I would still say Wilt. I could put you at the 1 yard line and you get 6 touchdowns.
That's my thing.
So.
Like, yeah, I'd put Wilt there too. And I mean that's when the running game was dominating football as well. So.
All right. What about Tiger Woods, 1997 at the Masters?
Wilt.
18 under par, won by 12 strokes.
I know nothing about golf, but if you're 21 beating professionals, when I was 21, I was still in college, didn't know what was going on. You're beating professionals, the best in the world. I would just say Tiger because of his age. I always believe if you're breaking records at 21, you're one of the GOATs. Point blank, period.
Again, yeah, it's his age. It's the gap between the two. Like if he was 18 under and the next guy was like 16 under, that'd be one thing.
Yeah.
But the fact that he won by 12 strokes as well, just absolutely dominant. And it's not right. It's like we talked about NASCAR like last week, right? It's not the NASCAR championship, but it's the Daytona 500.
Sure.
It's not the quote unquote whatever PGA championship, but it's the Masters. Like it's the biggest stage in golf, and you're able to go out there and do that. I'm all for riding for some of these older performances, i.e. Bill Russell winning 8 straight championships. But I'll go with Tiger Woods there as well.
All right, final one, and I know which way Cam's going to go on this. Michael Jordan scoring 63 points in the playoffs in 1986 against maybe the greatest team of all time with those Celtics, with Larry Bird and 4 other Hall of Famers in the starting lineup.
It's the most impressive sports performance ever. Like ever. And I mean ever. I don't care if he lost.
Is that more impressive than his flu game?
Yes, because he was in year 2. He had only
Flu game was
played.
in the finals, though, right? Flu game was in the finals,
Yeah,
though.
but Jordan was in year 2. He only played 17 games, and he was coming off a broken ankle that year. And you're playing against your second best player was like freaking Charles Oakley, who Charles Oakley is not. He's an enforcer. He's not nobody that's great. And the fact that you put up 63 points against who it's a top 5 team of all time, possibly top 3, and those are like 6 Hall of Famers. You have 3 MVPs, McHale, Walton, and Bird on that team with 2 other Hall of Famers, and Parrish and Johnson.
I saved this one on purpose. Because I think it might be more impressive than Jordan's 63 points. Don Larson. You have no idea who that is.
No.
1956 in the World Series for the New York Yankees through the only perfect game in World Series history.
That's nice, but no.
No, bro. Perfect against the Dodgers. That means no hits, no walks, nobody on base, no errors. That means you went out there and just cooked the second best team in your sport, and they couldn't do anything.
Literally anything.
Anything.
That's nice. But
Still Jordan?
Yeah.
Still Jordan.
Still Jordan?
Man.
He was technically in year 1, if you want to be technical, because he was still like a rookie technically based off the games, and his team was like 34 and 48, and he averaged 45 that series.
Still Jordan?
Yes.
PJ, still Jordan?
It's tough for me, especially like I said, I get impressive as heck against the team that he was playing against for sure, and how young he was. But man, you just educated me a little bit. A perfect game in the World Series. Okay, was that to close out the series or no?
No, but it got him. It got him back in there, and they would go on to win the World Series.
See, and that's like, you were already down.
Yeah, Jordan would have won a championship in
bringing
86.
it back.
Yeah.
I think I might have to go with a perfect game.
Let's go.
That's
PJ's on the
massive.
Don Larson train.
That's massive. It's difficult for me to cross sport like that, but like that is massive. It's on the biggest stage as well. Like you just said, like Jordan was obviously carrying that basketball team at that point, but
Larry Bird called the man God. I'll go with Jordan.
it's one.
That's fair.
God.
We'll go to break. We'll come back with more on Second Down right after this. It's a second down on ESPN radio. Nothing I like more than a surprise quiz. I had this planned, but then we just kind of went off on a, tangent.
Why don't we do it tomorrow?
Nope.
There's like,
We have 2 minutes.
oh my gosh.
Let's just see if we can get more here.
Okay.
We're just going to go through
All right.
the NCAA transfer portal. Just because I wanted to refresh y'all's memory because we're going to talk about this tomorrow anyway.
Gotcha.
Refresh your memory. Where did Caleb Williams go?
USC. Yeah.
All right. Where did Quinn Ewers go?
Texas?
Uh-oh. What about Jackson Dart?
Ole Miss.
Ole Miss.
Man's
Yeah,
on
yeah.
fire. Eli Ricks.
Alabama.
Oh, Alabama.
Jameer Gibbs.
Alabama, of course.
Zach Evans.
Zach Evans. Oh,
Georgia?
Nope.
Oh, Alabama?
No.
I
I don't know who
Where'd he
Zach
come
Evans
from?
is.
don't know.
Georgia's kind of right because he was committed to Georgia, but then he couldn't get in.
That's
and
right.
Then
Yeah,
went
that's
to
why.
TCU, and now he's at
Auburn?
Ole Miss.
Ole Miss. Yeah.
Oh, that's the running back.
Yep.
Okay.
Mario Williams.
Oh man, I'm starting to lose
talking
names
about-
now.
He got drafted by the Bills in like
Yeah.
2004.
Yeah.
This man sounds like a wide receiver, right?
He is. He's absolutely a wide receiver.
Yeah.
He followed somebody somewhere.
Oh, either Ole Miss or USC then.
USC.
All right.
We all know where Jermaine Burton went.
Yep.
I'm trying to see some. All right. Yeah. Spencer Rattler.
Yeah, South Carolina.
Oh,
I
South
almost
Carolina.
say USC.
The next great thing, South Carolina. Yeah,
Dylan Gabriel.
whatever.
oh, crap.
Oklahoma.
Oh yeah. Wow. Yeah.
Jalil Billingsley.
Texas? Yeah.
What? You guys are on fire.
Woo!
Jaden Hazelwood.
No.
Oh,
we're not
he
on
transferred?
fire.
Yeah.
I don't know.
From
Ohio State,
Oklahoma
maybe?
too?
I don't know. Ohio State,
USC.
No.
Ole Miss,
Nah, closer.
closer to here?
Closer to
Mississippi
actually-
State?
Close. Arkansas.
Oh, okay.
Arkansas. So we'll talk about that tomorrow. 3 and Out's coming up next. BJ Bennett, Ben Troop, Kevin Thomas. No transfers there. They're still there. We'll talk to everyone
For now.
manana.